What do you make of what's happening in Iran? That's a big shock to the system.
The Iran war is a consequence of the New World Order. Previously, the national interest was not common at all. But now that kind of liberal global government or something is over. So big powers plays important role and they act on their national interest. And that's what the United States doing. Iran was a center of a violent, anti-Semitic, anti-freedom network. So to destroy that capacity of Iran could lead us closer to the peace. But if the Americans are not able to do it, that could lead us into an even bigger, complicated, longer war. I was in power when the war erupted against Iraq, how it was done in Afghanistan. I know how complicated to arrange any result on that region of the world. So to go in, it's easy. To get out is almost impossible.
I'd say one thing, obviously it's not my place to speak on Hungarian politics and what Hungarians want, but as someone who's been watching European politics and watching what you really focus on, I've listened to your interviews, whenever someone asks a question, you always talk about what's best for Hungary before talking what's best for Europe, what's best for the world. I think, as someone, again, who's spoken to leaders in so many countries, I don't think Hungarians understand how uncommon that is. Because world leaders get stuck in a world of power, they care about, they want to do everything, We want to fix Ukraine, we want to fix the Middle East, we want to, talk about geopolitical issues, and they lose track that their main job is focusing on their people. It's been, how many years, 1998 to 2002, and then 2010 till 2026, and you've always, till now, haven't fallen into the trap of caring about the outside world.
The Hungarians think that everybody in Europe shared their point that European Union is a kind of coordination system of the nations and national interest, which is not, because federalistic approach is far more ruling and common. So the Hungarians they are not aware that what I'm doing is absolutely unique. They think that all the other leaders behaving like me, but this is not the case at all. Okay, so it's, but I try to explain to them.
On TikTok.
On TikTok, and it's to be politician in Central Europe is an educative process as well, because politics is complicated. And if you have some skills to explain simply complicated political issues, it's a mission, I like it. My mother was a teacher, dealing with handicapped kids, mentally handicapped kids, So I grown up when kids were in my house, in the house of my mother, after the school, teaching them. So I understand what does it mean that something which is complicated for somebody should be explained in a simple way. So I am very much trained on that. So that's what I'm doing, not just exercising power, but help the people to understand the complicated political issues.
To help them understand that in today's world, or actually since forever, but in today's world, boring is a blessing, not a curse. Like boring is good, stability is good. That's at least my personal opinion.
There is a saying of the Chinese who would like to wish bad thing to you. They say that I wish you would have interesting times.
That's exactly. People should listen to Chinese sayings. They know they're an ancient civilization. So when they say something, take it seriously. But yeah, like I miss the days of boringness, and I wake up in the morning, there's no Iran war, there's no Ukraine war that is ongoing. It's like talking about this, isn't it? Like it's a lot to handle. What do you make of what's happening, especially in Iran? That's a big shock to the system and to many of us.
First of all, we have to understand that the Iran war is a consequence of the New World Order. Previously, the national interest and action on national interest based was not common at all. But now that kind of liberal global government or something is over. So now the world is as it is. So big powers plays important role and they act on their national interest. And that's what the United States is doing now. Well so that's the point. I don't know historically, because we need some perspectives to make a judgment on actions like war on Iran, whether this action on behalf of President Trump will lead us closer to the peace or will lead us closer to the war, a longer war. because it's obvious that Iran was a center of a paramilitary, international, violent, fundamentally religious-based, anti-Semitic, anti-freedom, network. So to destroy that capacity of Iran could lead us closer to the peace. But if the Americans are not able to do it, that could lead us into an even bigger, complicated, violent, war-like situation.
I 100% agree. I think that's really well said, because I fully align with you that the Iranian regime goes against the values that we both believe in, I'll call it liberal democracies, even though we're kind of past the liberal part, the democratic system that we believe in.
Freedom.
Let's stick with freedom, you're right. But solving it through military means is a very risky thing. So it could either lead, especially if it's a quick operation, to a utopia.
Especially having experiences from that region. So I am an old fox, even President Trump is elder than me, but in terms of experiences, I have more, because I was in power when the war erupted against Iraq, how it was done in Afghanistan. I do remember when the towers came down and the response of them. I was Prime Minister at that time, So I know how complicated to arrange any result on that region of the world. So to go in, it's easy. To get out is almost impossible. And to make impact exclusively from the air, and to manage something in the right direction from the air, even we have modern telecommunication means and instruments, it's impossible. That's my experience. So I think what's going on is very risky.
Agree. You said you were Prime Minister when 9/11 happened, when the Iraq War and Afghanistan War started, among other things, when the Syrian regime, the civil war started there. So are you just used to the world being what it is? So what was your reaction when the Iran war started? Were you expecting it? Did it come as a shock? Were you worried?
So I'm a national-based political leader, so I don't have global responsibility, So the first reaction of my mind is always, okay, what is the consequence of that on Hungary? No, I am not playing the game to imagine myself as President of the United States, what should be done, That's the liberal thing, So I don't base my politics on that. If I see something on the world like strike on Iran, my first question, okay, what kind of dangers could come to Hungary? And there are many. So I'm not happy with that at all. First of all, migration. Migration is a fatal issue here in Europe. Many countries were not able to say no, and now they are in deep, deep, deep trouble. And they have not an even clue how they can get out of that. Probably they are lost countries in terms of identity, and their future is absolutely not clear. So Hungary, luckily enough, was enough to defend against the mass migration we have suffered 10 years ago. Plus, we have never had the imperialistic territories outside our country, so there is no citizens of different from ours who should claim to come because they belong to the same empire. So we are lucky in many terms. So basically, we defended ourselves. But now, Iran is 90 million inhabitants, and as far as I remember, 4 million Afghan-based citizen is living as a refugee in Iran, and Iran cannot provide any more shelter for them. And Turkey is the next country, so it's easy from Iran to come to Turkey, and from Turkey up to the Balkan and arriving to the Hungarian border. So that the possible current of the next mass migration is the main headache. The second one is the oil price globally. Hungary is a country which lost 2/3 of its territory and population as an outcome of being defeated in the First World War, which means that we lost all raw material sources, all energy sources. So we are a landlocked country, which is, naturally, we have the nicest country, of course, it's beautiful. But in terms of energy and raw material, we are very poor. So we need imports. So when the oil price is going up, the price of import is going. So when the Ukrainian-Russian war happened, in 1 year time, the price of energy import from outside went up from 7 billion euro to 17 billion. So which means that the Hungarian economy lost 10 billion euro in 1 year. So if the oil prices are going up again, as it happened several years ago, we will suffer again. So that's these are the main challenges, not how to reorganize the Middle East. That's a very nice thing, but that belongs to the big guys. So I have to take care of the Hungarian consequences of this new war.
Yeah, I've got a question for you when it comes to the repercussions of this war on the EU and other American allies, because Trump is putting his America first hat on, but he's really practicing it. Because this was strategically, if he wins, if he controls the Strait of Hormuz, strategically it's so important for the US long term, especially, you've talked about the AI race between China, the US and the world. And the AI race is all about energy, which again, you've talked about. So Trump or the US controlling that strait's very important for the US. But for Europe and even Asia, they're suffering the most. Migration, energy. What do you make of this? Is he practicing what he preached and putting America first? Or has Europe just become so weak that it's not being taken into consideration like it used to 20 years ago?
I think we Europeans, at the European level, we made some serious mistakes. We can't change the United States, Big boys, big guys, they do as their interest dictate for them. Or we haven't have any influence to change China, so that kind of moral preaching we are always doing is ridiculous. In reality, it's good for the spirit of the liberal intellectuals in Brussels, that we are preaching the word, but in fact,
no one cares.
It's not how this game is played. So we made two major mistakes at the European level. First is making jokes on Donald Trump from the very beginning.
Backfired badly.
This is not the way to behave. If somebody is coming up, even is a maverick, who is not a traditional background politician like Donald Trump, you can't behave as they have done when he won the election first time, to make jokes, and all that kind of things. Because that was the decision of the American people. You should behave respectfully. And they did that. They destroyed the person, because politics is on human beings as well. Leaders are human beings. Yeah. So to destroy the bridges and the possibility of cooperation with the biggest power of the world, because he is not liberal, he's conservative, and we are. And we think we have academic background, so we are somehow higher positioned person than somebody who's coming from business. It's not good. It's a mistake. It's a big mistake. That's first. Second, when Trump came back second time, they should realize that it's not just a personal success of somebody, but this is a new age of politics. Yeah. And which means new relationship necessary to be formulated between United States and Europe. But they did not do so. They behave like a kid, and just gathering all the progressive liberals from United States to give a shelter in Brussels and teaching again morally all the world United States, behaving like that. Politically, it's an absurd. So we have to have the best possible relation with the United States instead of being in confrontation. So that was the first mistake. The second is Russia. So if you are so exposed to the energy, oil and gas, what you need, you cannot give up one of the major source of your energy you need. So it's crazy. I understand the pressure of the United States, war on Ukraine, but what we are doing to have sanctions on cheap Russian energy is just politically crazy. Yeah. Whether you like Putin or not, whatever, but you have to think about your own people. So now, that will be ended in a humiliation of the European politicians, because now this Hormuz and this strait is closed and we don't know how it will operate again and when. Sooner or later they have to turn back to Russia. Yeah. And we have to buy from there. So it is a strategic mistake. Putin
is sitting in the Kremlin laughing at what's happening right now.
No, they are just asking for a coffee.
It's crazy. It is crazy. Theoretically, what Europe stood for, I love Europe. I spent years in Europe, including Hungary. And what Europe and the European Union stands for, in theory, is beautiful. Oh. But they kneecapped themselves. They hurt one of the most beautiful continents in the world, if not the most beautiful. while other superpowers just watch them from, China, the US, and they focus on what's best in their own national interests.
Okay. So I think Europe is the best part of the world to live on.
It's beautiful.
First, it's beautiful. Second, if you enjoy history, Europe is nothing as just thousands of years of history, So, and it's not just on the books, but if you walk on the streets, you see the history, even in Budapest or Paris, So it's fantastic to think not just in the context of your own life, but the context of many generations back and consequently ahead. So it's intellectually, to be European is very inspiring, just because the given history, So I love it. And the idea to cooperate of the European nations, that's wonderful, because many war has started confrontations among European nations, and instead of having war threat continuously, just to cooperate, which was the original idea of EU, is fantastic, okay. But you should not create an empire, which is going on now in Brussels, to centralize the power, and grabbing more and more sovereign rights of the nations to Brussels and to push them down, that's going on. So the original idea was wonderful. What's going on is awful. So this is the point. How we became so irrelevant? That was your question. Okay, but I was there when it happened.
Oh, yeah, of course. You've been there for so long.
So politically speaking, because intellectually it has probably a longer story, but politically speaking, I was involved into the discussion 2009, 2010. 2010, I was even a member of the European Council, how to interpret and how to react on the world financial crisis. That was 16 years ago, 17 years ago. And the explanation developed by the Germans, basically, and then became common, that this is a kind of cyclical capitalist crisis, nothing special. It's used to happen, it will happen. So we have to adapt ourselves to these changes as we have done up to now. And I was the only one who represented a different view on that. And I said, guys, are we sure that this is what's going on? Don't we think that this is a reorganizing of world economy and world power? Because the Chinese are coming up. Americans have to respond to that. They both improving their competitiveness. We don't do that because we think it's just, we don't need major reforms. It's just the normal cyclical crisis of capitalism. So if we don't do major reforms in order to be more competitive, we will lagging behind Chinese and Americans soon. And they rejected that. They said, no need that. So, but I kept my point. So in Hungary, in 2010, we introduced a totally different, absolutely labor-based, merit-based, pro-market, pro-business economic policy, which is absolutely different from what's going on in Brussels and in Germany and the other countries. So the deep structure of the Hungarian economy is totally different than the Westerners, the Europeans are doing. So that was the moment when they lost the momentum. And then, they lost 5-6 years, and United States is up, not as dramatically as the Chinese. They are bracketing, and we are just lagging behind. So that's where we are. So if you make a bad interpretation of what's going on in world economy, and you are not promptly able to react, you lose historically, because the time is accelerating now. So that's happened. In Hungary, we have still some chances. Unfortunately, we are small, but at least we are quick. And we have now a far more competitive structure of economy. Let's say the labor regulation, taxation, social affairs. So we are far more competitive than the Westerners are. So they have a welfare state system, which is not competitive anymore. We have a workfare state system, Everything, so we don't pay social aid and things like that. Everything is related or linked to the labor. So if you would like to survive, you have to do something. And I'm providing a circumstance for the business that they are able to provide chances for jobs to everybody. Full employment is the number one achievement of my government here. And it still works.
You saw me take a note because I wanted to ask you one more question on Iran before we move on to more about the EU. And that's Something I'm struggling with, and I'd love to get your thoughts, as someone who supported Trump very early on when he was coming up, before he became president, and continued to do so. You've got a very good relationship with him, got an exemption for your country to buy Russian oil, and that has been great for your country. A lot of other countries have been jealous watching that happen. So congratulations on that.
I was the only person in Europe who already started to support or to agree to or to be positive on President Trump in 2015, when he was involved into his first campaign against Hillary. And I said very clearly, guys, the elite of the West is so tired, is so boring, having no new ideas, is so academic, So we need somebody who is a different kind of leader. Otherwise, we will be in trouble. And that was the reason I had no any personal acquaintances with Trump. But I realized that this gentleman is a different one. It's a different kind of leadership. You could have discussion whether you like it or not, but he do the things differently. And he's not just talking and creating committees, but he will do something. That's exactly what we need. So I started to cooperate with him. And by character, the Hungarians are loyal. Once a friend, always a friend. That's a kind of command in Hungary. So till then, I'm with him. Even if, you can't agree 100% with everything, but I'm still with him because I understand what is the historical mission of him.
Agree. That's well said. So that links to my next question. I know you focus heavily on Hungary, obviously, but one thing I'm struggling with, and many other Americans and people around the world that support Trump, is that he's talked for years, if not decades, about ending wars, okay? And now what we have in Iran is just such a paradox. Low energy prices, and look what the rest of the world, but also the US is facing. How do you make sense of what he used to talk about and what we're seeing right now? Because I've looked at him as the politician that's different, that will say things as they are, and that will not be as influenced by different lobbying groups, etc., that might have influence on him. Now, I understand
more sovereign.
Exactly, more sovereign. And I understand the strategic interests of the Strait of Hormuz, but I just didn't think a military operation to gain access that continues so many weeks was going to be the new reality. So how do you make sense of this? So what do you say to people that are struggling to make sense of it?
It depends. My opinion depends on what will happen in the next 1 or 2 months. Yeah. If he is able to close it, and that kind of snake nest of violence which Iran meant is disappearing, and something new is coming, and normality is back, and the statehood life of Iran is restored in another basis than it was, and then Iran is again integrated into the world economy, and the neighborhood of Iran again can produce energy for the world. It could happen in some weeks. Yeah. Then we can say, okay, it was very risky. It has short-term bad consequences, but it was right.
Yeah.
But if this is not the outcome, we have to sit down again and to discuss what going on.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think the intention, which we don't know for sure, the intention behind it all. Did he get into this war expecting maybe a prolonged war, or did he expect a quick operation, which I think most people think he thought it's going to be like Venezuela?
That's a big puzzle.
Yeah.
I don't know, because you cannot look into the mind of the President of the United States. But I was lucky enough to be in Washington because of the Peace Board establishment, the first meeting, just several days prior to the American strikes on Iran. And we had a bilateral. And he asked my opinion.
About
whether
Iran.
To strike or not.
Okay.
So I was close to understand what's going on, but he's not the man who revealed his real intention, which is in his mind, So, but as a leader of a small country, I got a chance to understand that something will happen soon.
Yeah, and I think he's a very smart man as well. And a lot of people say he's doing this because of Israel, or he's doing this because of nuclear weapons and Iran as a threat. I think it's more strategic. Everyone that believes in democracy wants the US to win against China when it comes to the AI race, if you believe in democracy. And for the US to really get a head start, the Strait of Hormuz is really important, because China's the nuclear energy which Europe destroyed, China's built it up, catching up to the US. Renewable energy, China's is scary how fast they're growing. Kind of links to my next question is, how should Europe place itself in that power struggle between those two countries, and how have you done it between Xi and Trump or the US and China?
Okay, to think on that global context is not my job, again, because I should deal with the interest of Hungary. But if you ask me intellectually how I see this new world situation, I think it's failure to think that anybody can beat China. It's impossible. So if you are thinking in a frame that there could be only one sun on the sky, we misunderstand the situation. China is simply unbeatable. China will be as one of the two main parties of world politics.
Europe as well, no?
Europe is out of that concern. So they will hear, they will present, they will influence the world. So the question for us, Westerners, how we can live with that situation. If we think that we can destroy them or beat them or something like that, we misunderstand the situation, because their energies and their culture is very, very strong. So they are back as they were, let's say, 500 years ago, because prior to the dominating period of the West, China was always the most ancient and most successful civilization. And now they are simply back. So we have to find a way how to live on the same globe. And for us, Westerners, we have to understand that there will be at least two suns on the sky. And competition is part of that. On AI and technology and many things, trade, but competition is not the only element how we can imagine the future of the globe. Cooperation is also. And for us Westerners, we have to defend our interest. We have to defend our source of richness and wellness and happiness and political system. But at the same time, we have to understand that there will be another global player who has different values, different cultures, and very much competitive with us. And we have not just be competitive, but cooperative as well. That's not the job of the Hungarians, because it's scale counts. That belongs to the big guys, like United States. Europe is absolutely out of that.
Don't say that. Really? They can't get back if things change. Things are not changing fast enough, but isn't Iran war a wake-up call? Isn't that enough to say, wake up, guys? I spoke to a few MEPs and I always ask them, what happens behind the scenes? Why is there that inertia? It's bureaucracy. It's as simple as that. But I'm hoping Iran will shake up the bureaucrats to change their way.
There are, that's lead us too far away, but there are some components why we are not able to be the third player of this game. Is obvious. The first is, bureaucracy, you have said. Second, federalization of the European nations. It's not just the bureaucracy. Germans and French and others are in favor of that also, which totally against being competitive. A European empire could be never competitive, because the real energy in Europe is only coming from the nations. A kind of cooperation system of the nations, yes, can make us more competitive. An empire, which is headquartered in Brussels, destroy the basic source of the energy of Europe. So that's going on. The second one, 80 years in peace. When security was provided by the United States. That changed the mind of the people. So we need a new generation which understand that responsibility means responsibility for your own security. You can't live on the other money and other blood and other weapons, like United States. So we have to create a European security, strength and power to be responsible for our own security. But you know what? We have never done it. So mentally, our approach is not the right one to that at this moment. The third one, that's psychology. In the western part of Europe, they were never occupied by the Russians, so that's a different set of mentality. They think that Europe is always the nicest, the most clever, the most beautiful, morally always right, that kind of self-depicting, which is not anymore the case. Everybody else is just laughing at me, because we are not competitive, we are not as beautiful as we were. Migration destroy all this beauty of this country. You are not as peaceful as you were, because now terrorism is at home thanks to or consequently consequence of the migration. So Europeans, what the hell are you speaking about? Technology, you are not. I cannot mention one single branch of technology when we would have been ahead. This is not the case.
It's crazy.
So therefore, Europe has to rethink about his own mission. What are the values which are represented by him, and nobody else can do it? What is your exclusive mission? What you can give to the history of the human being in the future? You know, and we don't have answers to that, especially because we have given up the original answer to that. Because we had an original answer to that. That was the Christian continent, and now the liberals has cut off the Christian roots. So now they don't have any answer what represented by the Europeans, which cannot be represented by somebody else. And because having no answer to this question, the self-awareness, self-esteem, and all that kind of things disappearing. And if you don't have that as a person or as a nation, the consequences are the same. Going down, disappearing. It's a bad story at this point.
It is, again.
Wake up, possible wake up or not, nobody can answer that question, but should be done.
Please wake them up.
But
I love Europe.
I am absolutely optimistic and positive on Central Europe.
Okay.
So the Baltic states, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovaks, Hungarians, down Slovenians, Croats, Serbs. So I'm rather optimistic. So this middle Europe is very, very strong, mentally totally different. We never depicted ourselves as the western part of Europe did. The energy here is very strong. The people still have belief. Probably the personal belief is not as strong as it should be to the God, but to understand that Christianity is a set of teaching we have to follow. Whatever is your personal religious position, you know, it's necessary to have. Yeah. And we have to preserve. So Central Europe is really ready to jump. Yeah. And I think in the next 10 years, it's about this region, which will be very much competitive and which will have a better reaction on the American politics than the Westerners, if we are able to reorganize our relation to Russia, because this is a problem that some countries of this region don't understand, that without making a business and deal with the Russians, we cannot be successful. Yeah. Because history has a different lesson we have got from Russia. So, but if we are able to behave rational on that subject, Central Europe will be fantastic.
Yeah. One comment on this before going back to, I think Russia's really important discussion now, especially with what's happening in Iran. The definition you've given about someone is born religious, born Christian, and then I'm no longer religious. I think one thing I agree with, and I've said this a lot of times, the teachings I learned as a kid are what makes the religion so important. It gives a structure to life that creates.
We have plenty of decades to come back to the.
No, but I think that
don't give it up.
The culture of it is so important, and that's so. Whenever I post about, I have a lot of Muslim friends, but whenever I post about, things you don't expect to see in New York, you don't expect to see in Germany, you don't expect to see in the UK. When I tell my Muslim friends the most common name for babies right now in many European countries is Muhammad for many years. Great name, I don't mind it at all. I live in Dubai now, a Muslim country, but that's not Belgium, that's not England. It's just the culture has just been eroded. That's what the problem is. It's not about Islam versus Christianity or Arabs versus Europeans. It's about each country. When you go to Saudi, you expect to see something different than what you see in Hungary. That's been eroded from Europe, and that's one of the things that makes Europe beautiful.
May I have a comment on that?
Of course, yeah, please.
So I think Muslim religious set of teachings and this whole Muslim world is a big achievement of the human being. So it's a great civilization. If there is no that kind of civilization, the alternative is barbarism. It's not barbarism. It's a kind of civilization, which is different from ours anyway. There are some similarities on certain points and big differences on many of points. So we have to accept that this is a civilization, but each civilization has a location. Yeah. As the teaching says, each nation has his own place under the tree of fig or something like that. So it's not a accurate quotation, but it's a teaching, you know. So you have your own place. We have our own place. You have your own place, you know. You develop your civilization and culture. We developed ours. Don't mix it up.
Yeah.
So the problem is mixed it up. We can visit each other, even we can work and cooperate with each other, but we can't claim that this is our world. You know, because this is the Christian Europe. If you would like to come, you can be here, but you have to adapt yourself, because we would like to maintain the cultural identity of our civilization, because this is the energy which help us to be strong and happy. So to give it up, it's a problem. And now the liberals, the scene is going to the liberals anyway. The mistake was done by them, because they lost their Christian roots, and they thought that the mixed up various civilizations, like Christians and Muslims, will be resulted in, you know, in a modern liberal society, a colorful, modern liberal society. And the Muslims who arrive to Europe will give up or will reform their relation to their religious teachings as we Europeans done. But this is not the case, because they have strong beliefs, you know. Yeah. They have far strong beliefs on their own civilization and the religious set of values than we do. So now they are here, they are stronger, and there are many confrontations between the Christian cultural heritage and the Muslim new way of life. And in Western Europe, it's a constant source of constraint and pressure and confrontation. So my point is very simple, you know. So we respect them, but this is Hungary.
Yeah.
We don't give up our identity, and we don't mix it up because it's too risky. Probably liberals will write in 100 years, and the outcome of this whole, you know, mess will be something nice. But as a leader of this country, I think it's simply too dangerous, and we would not like to take that risk. We insist on the Christian roots and Christian values.
It's crazy that you can't make that decision for yourself based on, oh, you can in a way, but you get penalized for it. That just shows how flawed the European Union structure is. Again, I understand after World War II the necessity of it for Europe to have peace, and that's a great achievement, putting Ukraine, Russia aside. But yeah, it's a flawed system. I do want to ask one more question about Iran, because I think it's really important. It's relevant, and that's Trump's request for NATO to open the Strait of Hormuz. First, what an incredible politician. He starts a war, and then he requests other countries to come open the Strait of Hormuz. If I was American, I'd be like, you're my president. He really puts America first. But I'll put you on the spot. Like, is that something? He's incredible. I swear. I couldn't believe when I saw that post. But what do you think? Do you think NATO would? I know it's a tricky question, putting you on the spot.
No. I think this is a serious question. So if we Europeans behaving to America as we have done under the presidency of Donald Trump, you know, the NATO is over.
Yeah.
So if we would like to have transatlantic cooperation, we have to make good deals with each other. And we have to maintain it. If the Europeans remain hostile to the American president or United States led by Trump, and probably the next generation of the Republicans, you know, how NATO can survive. So we are in a deep trouble to think about the future of NATO.
But it's a tricky position, because Europe didn't start this war either. So I also empathize with them. They're like, you know, Trump, you started this war, you didn't tell us about it. It's not a war we want. We suffer from it because of energy, because of migration, potential migration. And now you want us to come clean up your mess. There's a position of which I also understand, and I also understand Trump's position. Why not ask me to fight?
I'm not speaking exclusively about this situation around Hormuz Strait and Iran. I'm speaking in long-term future of NATO, which is a structural issue. I think now we are moving to a good direction in a sense that now the Europeans realize their own responsibility for their own security. Yeah. Which is the number one precondition of fairness. Yeah? Because President Trump is right that, guys, you are living on our money because we provide the security for you. So if you do so, please behave, or at least accept what I ask you. Yeah. If you would like to get more sovereignty inside NATO, please.
That's a good point. Like, you can disagree with the war, but hey, you've got an obligation. Agree or disagree, it's different. Let's go to Ukraine, Russia. I think you're doing something so pragmatic when it comes to Russia, Ukraine. People might disagree with your stance.
Many.
Most people disagree with your stance in Europe and the European Union. But, you know, as someone that's tried to cover it so objectively, been to Ukraine, been to Belarus, Lukashenko been to Russia as well to understand everyone's perspective? Obviously, you've done that a lot more. I just see it, even before the Iran war, Europe needs Russia, even more than Russia needs Europe, because Russia has China, but both countries need one another. And now with the Iran war, it's like a punch in the face for Europe. What the hell did you do? What do you think the Iran war would change things when it comes to Ukraine? Less munitions for Ukraine because everything's being spent on Iran, but also Europe needs Russian energy. Could it change things? Have you sensed the change within other leaders here?
My answer, yes.
Okay.
It's inevitable.
Agree. How fast? How soon?
Okay. Well, the question is whether we will reform or change our practical policy which is going on today, or we Europeans are ready to rethink our strategy. Because the mistake we have done with that war is a strategic one.
Yeah.
So if you have 1 minute, I can explain how I see, which is absolutely different from the others. You know?
Yeah.
So how this war has erupted? The simple answer is Russia attacked Ukraine, which really happened. Okay. But what was the reality behind it? The reality was that the structure of security system in Europe was based on some commonly shared point. First one, NATO was enlarged by the Central European countries during the course of the 90s, which was against the intention of Russia, but Russia was weak and they had to accept it, not because they love it, you know. Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, member of NATO, it was against the interest of Russia, but they were weak. And they were so weak that they were not able to stop it, okay? So it happened. And now the Russians realize that they have to live with that. So between NATO and Russia remain only two countries, Belarus and Ukraine. And then the Westerners started to change their mind and to say this kind of buffer zone, which Ukraine was, should join NATO as well and to the European Union as well. And the Russians said, guys, we are not as weak as we were. Now we are strong. If you get closer to our borders, we consider it a security question. We don't consider it a freedom issue of a nation or sovereign issue of a nation. It's a Russian security issue. And they said it clearly. If you rearm the Ukrainians, practically or legally involve them into NATO, there'll be no other option Russia than to strike. So they have spoken about it for years. And we said, no, it's just a bluff. And then the Russians did what they have done. So the question is for the future whether this zone of territory called Ukraine is belonging to the West or remain or goes back to the previous status as buffer zone. If we understand that we cannot accept Ukraine as member of NATO, neither as European Union, because we cannot do so, it would be a war immediately between Russia and Europe, the only reasonable move to reconsider our strategy and say, okay, Ukraine is again a buffer zone. If we are able to do so, we can consolidate the situation. We can make a business with the Russians. We can make agreements on security, trade, energy, and all other issues. And then it could have a reasonable and commonly fruitful relationship between Russia and Europe. If we are not able to do so, and we insist on that Ukraine is part of the West, the war situation, regardless what's going on today and tomorrow, but in proper historical perspective, that kind of source of war will remain there and will erupt again and again and again. It's more than 1,000 kilometer long borderline, you know. So this is the question, not just how to react because of Iran, blah, blah, blah. We have to totally change our strategy. Exactly what we Hungarians proposed anyway when the war erupted, because that was our interpretation at that time. And on the Council of Europe, I've always said, guys, this strategy that you would like to integrate Ukraine into the Western structure and through then push back more the Russians, it's not reasonable. And you can't do that. Russia is a different country. They will not let it happen. So rather go back to the starting point. Russia, buffer zone, West. This is the only structure which is manageable. All the other structures will result soon in war. So that was my position still. I think what has happened created arguments in favor of my original position.
Who's standing more in Trump's way to reach peace in in that war? Is it more Putin being stubborn about the Donbass, or is it more the European Union not Europe not wanting to give up Donbass?
The Russian position, even if you don't like it, nobody likes it anyway, but it's at least reasonable. They said, guys, happened what has happened. You started to integrate the Ukrainians. You should give it up. But we don't trust anymore. So therefore, we need that territory, which is a kind of smaller buffer zone between original territory of Russia and you, if you try to, again, integrate Ukrainians into your structures. So they will not give up that target. So they will follow that war target. And they will reach it. They will reach it by any means. So the question is how we can react on that. So it's better to react as soon as we can by ready to be negotiating on peace, than to continue the fight. That's what President Trump realized, that this is the case. And they're saying, guys, every week, 9,000 soldiers being, dead or injured in a dramatic way on both sides. So altogether, 1 week, 9,000 people, which means 1 month, 36, which means 1 year, 400,000. What the hell are you doing? Every year 400. So stop it. Plus, it's bad for your economy, Europeans. It's bad for the Russian economy. Why we don't stop it, sit down, and to make a deal on the basis of reality? That's the American position, which I support very much. But the Europeans would like to continue the war. So they would like still to integrate Ukraine into the into the European structures. They haven't given it up. That's the problem. And this is a strategical obstacle and at the same time reason why the Europeans are absolutely pro-war. They are destroying themselves. Can you imagine that we don't have money to modernize our economy, being more competitive, and at the same time we are spending 200 billion euro up to now, then another 90 billion loan, then another 300 billion loan to the Ukrainians, which will never be paid back. Having a shortage of sources for modernization of our economy here in Europe. So what we are doing from a European point of view is just against our basic interest.
Now, I think I even would blame American foreign policy even more than European, because the US was, if you remember the Bucharest summit, the US under many presidents was pushing for NATO to expand towards Russia as well. And I feel like Europe was caught into this.
No, that was 2008.
Yeah.
That was the point when I changed my mind on Russia. Because in 2008, on the Bucharest summit, there was an idea that Ukraine should be a member of NATO. Americans supported that. It was stopped by the Europeans anyway.
Exactly.
So you are right. Why it was stopped by the Europeans? Because the Russian influence was strong on them. Which for me meant that now Russia is strong enough to stop it. So if the Russians are strong enough to stop it, give it up the target. Forget about Ukraine as member of the Western structures. So then I said, guys, this is a new age. Okay, from 1990, when the Soviet Union collapsed, the Russians were weak. They were not able to stop enlargement of Western structures, but now they are strong enough to do so. So don't do it. Don't continue. Take the reality as they are. Sit down and make a deal with the Russians. That was my position after 2008. Till then, I was very much in favor of pushing or inviting Ukraine into the Western structures. But 2008 NATO summit was an evidence it's impossible.
Yeah.
Stop it, change your strategy, adjust yourself to the reality, and reorganize in a different way your security. Yeah. That was my point. And still then, this is my position.
Most people
Russia
don't know.
is still strong like that.
Most people don't know that before 2008, your position was the complete opposite. It's Ukraine.
No, everybody knows here in Hungary.
Hungary, I'm saying around the world, they don't paint as such.
I am accused here in Hungary that I was very much in favor of pushing Russia back, and now I am not following the same track anymore. Because the reality has changed, of course. Yeah. So that's...
One last question on Iran and Ukraine. Another thing I worry about is the unintended consequences. We know that Putin did not want a prolonged war in Ukraine. It was meant to be a quick special operation that should end within days or weeks. Most people believe that Trump wanted the same thing in Iran, yet the Ukraine war's been going on for 4 years. That's scary. That is the worrying part.
It is. And I don't have an answer which can make you calm, unfortunately.
Yeah, do you, do you worry about Israel's, no, it's okay, he said he has another 3 hours, he's going to cancel the campaign today, so we're going to do this another 3 hours, perfect, cool. Just one last question is about the, because it's very relevant to what's happening here in Hungary, and that's what's happening in the Middle East, just general foreign policy with the wars that we're seeing in Lebanon, we're seeing in Iran, we're seeing, even in Syria was bombed 2 days ago, it's becoming the new normal after October 7th, a horrible event. I know you focus on Hungary, but just would love to get your thoughts on just in general what's happening in the Middle East. There's some people saying Israel's protecting itself, defending itself, and others are saying that Israel's just has gone too far after October 7th and just bombing all these countries, including American ally Qatar. What's your stance on all this?
Okay. Israel and the Jewish community plays a special role in the Hungarian context. First of all, because that's a Judeo-Christian culture what we have, you know. So I'm a Calvinist, which means that the Old Testament is as important as the New Testament for our belief, you know. So therefore, we feel a cultural continuation and relativeness of being close to each other. That's the first. Second, national one. We have a big Jewish community anyway here. So Israel is not just an issue which belongs to foreign policy. It's a domestic issue as well. Probably France has bigger Jewish community now than we have here in Hungary, but their number is reducing. So I think soon, because they escape, the poor Jewish family has to escape from them because of the new reality. But in Hungary, because it's very safe, you know, the Jewish community are flourishing here. You know, they suffered a horrible Holocaust here in Hungary, especially after being occupied by the Germans, you know. So we had a very sad story of our cohabitation, but they are still here, and they are original, authentic communities here, and they are citizens of Hungary, and they have some requests on the foreign policy of this country, which I can't neglect. Okay, I can't accept as 100%, but I have to integrate into the national policy of Hungary. And many, probably 200,000 Hungarians, original Hungarians, Jewish, are living in Israel. They are coming, so it's a big community issue here. Okay, and the third one is the historical mission of Israel. In my understanding nowadays, there are two countries which are key to stop the mass migration coming to Europe as a direct threat. First is Israel, second is Egypt. If each of these countries became unstable, we are in deep trouble here. We survived destabilization of Libya, but we cannot survive the destabilization of neither Israel, neither Egypt. So, therefore, it's absolutely logical and coincides with our national interests to stand for Israel on many issues. Plus, I have a personal deep friendship with the family of Netanyahu, because we're cooperating for more than 20 years. So that's the reason why the son is here. And you know, when I was in opposition, I lost the election here. He lost his election there. So we cooperated always, being in opposition or being in power always.
Did you check up on him? There's rumors he has 6 fingers now. Did you check up? He's okay? You saw that? You see the on X? Look, Mr. Prime Minister, it's an incredible discussion. I could do this, no joke, for another couple of hours, but I really appreciate your time. I know you have to go on a campaign trail today, so thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.